Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Maggie and Julia once again. They've been in this channel many times, and today we're going to talk about their similarities and difference as ESFJ, standard, and jumper. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves, starting with Julia. So Julia, go ahead and take it.
Hello, hi, I'm Julia. I am an ESFJ standard, so FESI. And my full type is double feminine FESI, sleep last. So I'm blast, play, consume, sleep.
Sweet. And then Maggie?
Hi, Maggie. My name is Maggie, and I'm an ESFJ jumper. FE, any, play, blast, sleep, consume, double feminine.
Okay, great. So you guys are very almost identical, actually. But there is some big difference though, with like the info dominance part, and also, what was it? Oh, right. So you're both crackhead blast play and play blast, so that's you guys have in common. So for everyone watching this, they're not actually crackheads. They don't. I don't know that, but they're not. But anyways,
I don't know about you, but
yeah.
Appreciate that context.
Yeah. All right. Love the high play. So let's go with the big difference first. One of you is savior control, and the other one is savior getter. Supposedly.
one of you, which one?
Yeah. Although it's really weird because Maggie's consume last, so it makes it added layer of weirdness to it, even though she's savior getter. But I'm gonna go with Julia first. So Julia, can you just share about what it's like to be savior organized?
Yeah, totally. So honestly, in a lot of ways, it's hard for me to see the organize in myself because I am sleep last. But it's for sure there. And when I compare myself to the OEs, even the consume last OEs, so I know other actually types similar to Maggie, FENE, consume last, I am more just like my actual like house is actually more organized than them. You know, just like literal physical, like actual physical organization. For me, it doesn't feel that way. I feel like my house is like an absolute chaos shit mess. Like it feels like I can never like organize shit because I am sleep last, but compared to a lot of the OEs, I do have actual physical organization better. So that's one thing. I do also, I'd love to talk about maybe during this interview, the kind of the like not wanting to be controlled and like the freedom kind of stuff, because I think that there's a difference there, but I just haven't been able to compare myself enough to them. So I think there's a difference there. Yeah, there are some other things as well, but I think that's kind of a big one that I just see like I'm actually physically more organized.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, obviously we'll cover the rest of the differences and similarities between you guys as we go along.
Yeah.
But Maggie, let's talk about you being savior getter as an ESFJ.
Yeah, so I do channel change a lot. I noticed that with just in my general day-to-day conversations. Also, I think also it being like any too, like it's amazing how much I can ignore the sensory. Like I will leave things out because I'm like, I need to do this later, and it will sit there for like months. And I can easily, like, it's not hard to ignore. So definitely my place gets a lot more chaotic, and I can totally see that it's not organized very well. But yeah, lots of channel changing, lots of there is that like demon don't control me a bit in there. Like I don't like to be tied. I don't like to be like cornered into like how I do things. I want to have the freedom. I want to have the choice. I need the options. The variety's got to be there for sure.
Do you have trouble with commitments also, Maggie? Because like of the
yeah. I would say, well, yes and no. It like I can do it, but it's just like like I don't know. It's too maybe it's not a good idea. I don't know. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I like Julia's like, like phrase there. So the other, Julia, you have a question for her?
No, I think because for me, like the options thing is like I see myself like wanting options so much, and I feel like I want options, but I also can tell when I compare myself to the actual OEs, like it's in a weird peacocking state, you know? So when I hear, I don't know, when I hear you talking about like I do need options open, it's like, I don't know, it almost like breaks my brain a little bit, because there's a part of me that wants to be like, oh, I'm exactly that way. But then I'm also like, oh, but not really, you know? because it's so balanced for me. But I also do know when I do go in that place, it is peacocking. So I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah, like the desire is there for our demons.
Yeah.
Like I want the control. Like I need the
Yeah.
control. I just want somebody else to do it. I don't want to do it.
So we also both have our double activated, our observer in the middle is double activated, right? So sorry, I'm just Blaster taking over this interview from you now, Kendrick. So like,
No, it's fine.
Do you feel like do you feel like you want the control kind of in the same way, like in the peacocking way that I'm talking about with options? Do you feel that with you?
Totally. Yeah. Like I almost need so much variety that like it gets controlling in a weird way. Like I need to, like if like at work I'm working on something and we're looking at new tools to like, oh, you know, we could do this, we could do that. And I'm like, I need the tool that gives me the most amount of options. And they're like, we don't need that many options. Like, so I can end up becoming controlling in that weird kind of way. Cause I'm like, no, but we need variety. I need to be able to do what, like to answer whatever problem comes my way. I need to be able to have the freedom to do it the way it needs to be done. So it comes out in a really weird way that is not necessarily beneficial to the situation. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
So the one thing about you guys that I'm very interested in is how close you are to each other's type. It's like so close. Okay, so I want to illustrate how close you are. So Julia is sleep last. That means she has double activated NF play, right? But Maggie, you are double activated blast, which is SF blast. So you guys are like so almost the same. But the big difference is the language. So Maggie, so before this interview, Maggie was sending me some of her pictures that I could potentially use for thumbnails, and she was telling me about her spirit animals. So it's like super NF, right? It's like, oh yeah, this is my spirit animal. You know, I'm like, huh. You know, I don't see Julia telling me about her spirit animal. So you know, it's just like Maggie just volunteered those spirit animal stuff to me, like right off the bat. I'm like, oh, that's such a NF hippie thing to say. So can you talk about being like an NF hippie, Maggie? Because like that's like the biggest difference I think with you and Julia, because Julia's like lead SF, right? So
yeah, that's interesting. I don't see myself that way, so like I don't know how to talk about that. But like I guess like yeah, like I don't know. To me, it was more of a joke. But yeah, like I think what it is that like I will entertain those things. I guess it's got to be in contrast, right? So I'm curious to see like what how Julia feels about like, you know, these sort of things. But like I like looking into the astrology. I like even getting into like typing or not typing, but like getting into like Myers-Briggs and personality systems. And like it is a bit woo-woo, and it's not like anchored into reality in a very solid, like tangible way. So I guess in that sense, but I think like it does kind of come down to like that need for variety is very much in that sort of like hippie realm, like very much like just like, you know, like not like whatever man, but like, you know, I'm generally very easygoing, love trying new things, like let's go explore, see what is out there, that sort of thing. So I think it's subtle, but it's like very core, like it's in the core.
yeah, and then the pictures you sent me were all travel pictures too, right? So it's like, oh, you're definitely gathering like a lot, you know. So
They were.
yeah. What about you, Julia? You are SF. So that's the biggest difference between you and Maggie. Can you talk about like the SF life, you know?
Definitely. And I do feel like I can see that I have a lot of NF. I think that, you know, my vibe can be very NF, but if you really get to know me, like the way I approach life is really like facts are king, you know? Like if it's not something that's supported by real world evidence, I'm a little like, okay, like maybe I don't necessarily believe that. I want to use that in my life or something like that. So I am very sensory is like clearly the savior. I mean, sensory is clearly the savior, even though I have a lot of NF. In terms of just the SF, like almost like popularity stuff, like that's I don't know, like harder to see. I mean, I guess like when I get on these videos and stuff, I think about like how I like present myself and like the way that I look. So like that's an SF thing, you know? Beyond that, I don't know. I can tell that I am a sensor, you know, and I see my demon any coming out. Not a ton, but you know, I see that sometimes like little like unknown things that happen like will kind of scare me. And then I get over it in a second, you know, because it's like it's not like the worst thing in the world. So I see that I am a sensor, and I do see that I do have demon any. And I kind of see that I care about the SF a little bit in terms of like the way that people perceive me in terms of like how I look and stuff. But honestly, SF Blast is not the most SF animal, you know? So I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's not like those ESTP guys that are like SF. Yeah.
I'm not SEFE. So when you think about like the popular archetype, it's very SE.
Yeah.
But I do have it's still SF in the things that I am caring about are things that are physical, that are valuable to other people. So like there's that core aspect of SF that I do align with. So yeah.
Speaking of those SE individuals, I just did an interview with two of them, and one of them was info dominant and the other one's energy dominant. So I think this is also a good chance for me to ask you guys a similar question, because their answer was really funny, based on what they gave me. It was obviously one was an energy dominant answer, one was an info dominant answer. Okay, so my question here is, how did you guys get into personality, especially objective personality? Did you do it because you wanted to learn the information, or did you do it for fun? You know, because it was like something fun. Like which, I mean, obviously it's both. It's both fun and you can learn something. But which came first, the fun or the information? You know, let's go with Maggie first.
So this is going to be a play answer. My mom got me into it.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think like this was like early 2000s, and she was, I think like she worked in HR, and she was like, oh, this could be interesting and useful, until like legal basically told her like, no, by definition this is discrimination, you cannot hire people using like their characteristics, don't do that. But anyway, she'd already gone down the rabbit hole, and she's like, oh, this is really interesting. And she so like she found some like I don't know, like some online test. It looked very MS-DOS like and yeah, so she typed me then. I didn't really think too much of it then, but maybe a few years ago it came back again at work. One of my colleagues, again, another play story, she was like, hey, everybody, we should all take this test because I want to see what everyone's dynamic is. And it was really interesting. That's when I got into OP, because it was really interesting, because I was like, okay, so according to this test, we've got this, we got an ISFP over here, we've got an INTP over here. And so I was just like, and like, it was kind of like, that idea, just like, you know, this thing just won't die. Like, it's not like it is kind of like a horoscope in that sense, that like people just love it, but like there's something to it, and it really does seem to resonate with people. So, and then I started like going down the YouTube rabbit hole, and then that's how I found OPS. And I was at first I was like, I don't really know what to think of this, and then the more I listened to it, I was like, oh, this actually makes more sense. Like, okay, there's actually something like substantial here that I can actually work with. Like, all right, that's cool. So that's kind of my story. A lot of play.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, oh, maybe your mom has like a picture of like ENFPs. Like, don't hire these ENFPs. They're fickle. You know, just kidding.
Actually, she does type as an I think like when she did it, she typed as an ENFP.
Oh, is she? Okay. Yeah. Like, yeah, don't hire those EPs. They're unreliable. They're gonna skip around. I'm just kidding. Just joking. But anyways, like, yeah. Anyway, so what about you, Julia? How did you get into the whole like personality thing?
Yeah, so that's Maggie's story is really interesting. It does sound like it's very much people oriented, like the tribe DE like roped me into it. Mine is very different. It had nothing to do with anyone else. I was just looking for it kind of on my own. And it was for sure on the information. Like it was down, I was going down in any rabbit hole, you know, of just like learning stuff about like, you know, like weird, interesting things, and personality was one of them. And like I happened to have like come across objective personality, and I was like, oh shit, they have sensory. Like, that's really cool, you know, because they had like pictures of people. And I was like, oh, that's different than all the other stupid personality things. Like, I'll join this one, you know? So it was like sensory plus consume, like in any rabbit hole that I was down. So it was definitely the information. Even more so, like, even thinking like this is fun. Like, I don't necessarily even think of it as fun. It's useful. There's parts that it's useful and it's interesting information, but I wouldn't even call it like fun right now. Like, what's fun? How would one get into this where it's fun? Like, out of fun.
Maybe the word fun is from people with extrovert sensing, because for them it's like it's cool, it's fun, but for us with NE it's like, oh, that's interesting, you know, like that's kind of like the word that we like to abuse. So maybe that's kind of where the difference is. So that's interesting how you said that. I don't know, I just said the word interesting, but
That is interesting, I agree.
Yeah. How interesting. Anyways, okay. Yeah, and Julia, I think you were also one of the early adopters of OPS, because like I think when they were typing like ESFJs, you're like one of the first two, I think, that came in.
So. There was one before me. I think Amanda.
Yeah, it was Amanda.
I think she was the first one who was my exact same type. And then since then, there's been several others. I think more FENEs than FESIs, but now at this point, there's like a few FESIs in the group as well. So we're getting up there.
Yeah, there's not many of you guys still, though. You guys are still on the rarer side of things. So I'm going to ask you guys about something that is on the similarity side. You're both EJs, but you both got into personality. So clearly there's like a part of you that's seeking your identity, you know, because like personality is all about identity. Can you talk about the process of how you decided, you know what, I want to find out more about myself, you know, and like learn about other people, but more importantly about yourself. Let's go with Julia first this time, because I've been making Maggie answer.
For me, it was for sure seeking answers about myself. I was also in a really weird place at that time, in that I was in, I can't remember if I was in the relationship or I'd just gotten out of a relationship, but I was like going through a difficult breakup. And I mean, that's sometimes the time that the EJs are like, you know what, maybe I'll learn about myself for the first time in my life, you know? It was that kind of a thing. And I wasn't doing it like systematically or anything. I was just like, maybe I'll Google, who am I? Like, it was, you know, like that kind of like bullshit stuff, you know? But it was a sense of, I was in a difficult period of my life, and it felt like it was the time in my life where now I do need to in fact learn about myself. How the fuck do I do that? I've never done that before. I don't know what I'm doing, you know, like that kind of a thing. And then I found out, I was like, oh my God, this is this amazing tool that will just like tell me who I am. And it's like kind of an easier way than doing it the normal route, you know? It was like that kind of a thing. And then I think that's how I kind of became addicted to it, that I was like, oh shit, like this is the thing that I need in my life. This does give me the NT about myself, why I do the things that I do, what are the patterns in my life, how do I relate to other people, or so maybe more so like how do my patterns in life compare to the patterns in life of other people, because like that's big for me. Seeing other people on the spectrum is kind of the thing that helps me see myself. So every time I can see other people more clearly, I can see myself more clearly. So once I got into op and I started to kind of see that pattern unfold, then it was something that kind of became an addiction, because it was like, oh my God, this is actually going to help me, you know, do my TI. And like, that's crazy. And then that's kind of how I stayed in it, I guess.
Did you feel like it was liberating when you got to know more about yourself, or was it something that's like, oh crap, there's like a big mountain I have to climb now that I know who I am, and it's what I need to work on?
There was, so a lot of people talk about being traumatized when they like find out their type, and they're like, oh my God, that's not who I think I was. And I definitely typed myself upside down, and I had a sense, like a moment of like, I guess I would say trauma of like, oh, I'm not Savior TI, like, oh my gosh, you know? But then once I saw the FE, I was like, oh yeah, okay, like totally, that makes sense. So I feel like I had like almost like a moment of trauma of like, I'm a totally different person than I thought it was. And then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, definitely. It took me a while to see like all of the parts, like especially the SI and the blast took me a really long time. The blast was like the last to come, but it wasn't traumatizing. It was like, the only trauma was like, oh my God, I'm an EJ and I'm actually not the most selfish person in the world. Because that's, you know, the point of view that I was coming from. So that was like traumatizing, but I got over it pretty quickly. So,
yeah, until you go to your IT swing, then you become the most selfish person.
Exactly.
I think when I first interviewed you, I thought you were Savior NE actually. I was like, oh my God, your NE so
Yeah.
good. Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
kind of tricky, but I guess it's masculine NE, right? So
Exactly.
yeah. What about you, Maggie?
Yeah. I mean, of course, like, I don't know, like, is there any, like, do people actually like get into Myers-Briggs to not learn about themselves? It seems like that would be the obvious thing to, but yeah, to me, it definitely was that sort of like, I want to know more about myself. But like I said, like when I got into this, like it was kind of like in the group dynamic that like I had like some like actual examples I could work with, be it whether they're true or not, who knows, but like I'd always had some fascination with my identity, like even when I was younger. Like I remember coming across some like philosophy textbooks, and I think like the one that I came across was just like, oh, your identity can change over time. It's kind of like a rope, it just ties into one over the other, like the pieces kind of like tie into themselves. And I think that was like, oh, that makes sense, I can change, good. And then I left it at that for a long time. And then eventually so once I came across OP, and that language and that framework, then I was like, oh, this is a really interesting way of like kind of discovering myself. For me, it's still not like, it's not a destination, it's like still a journey. Like I'm still learning more about myself. And like I like that Julia used the term addictive, it's very addictive. So I don't know if that's maybe like a demon DI thing, but that's what it seems to me. So yeah, it's still just like an ongoing way of learning about myself. And like I think it's still more about like, kind of getting better sense of the definitions so that I can like see how they apply to me. And definitely like that FE spectrum, like knowing where I sit and how I relate to other people does tell me a lot about myself. Like, do I relate to this person? Do I not? Like that full spectrum is really key.
I will, can I just add one other thing to what I said before, just kind of to kind of elaborate. I do also see, in terms of what I was saying before, of like like seeing, not really seeing my parts, but then like kind of seeing it once I got the type back. I feel like everyone kind of takes their personality type that they get, and they need a way to explain it like in their functions, so like they can see those parts, but then they like use their functions to kind of like twist it. And I feel like for me, one of the things that my brain is constantly doing is thinking like I need to be better than I am, like I need to be better, like not good enough kind of EJ stuff, but like I'm taking some sort of external information and then using that to convince myself that I need to be better in some way, shape, or form. And it was like I did that with my own type. I was like, oh, I'm FE, I'm supposed to be like nice to people. Well, I need to be more of that. Like I'm not good enough there. I'm not doing that enough. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I need to work on my demons. Well, I see myself doing that, but like maybe I need to be doing more of that. I need to be doing more of that. Like I need to be kind of better in some way. So I definitely saw myself going down this trail of like, yeah, sure, being able to see my type, but then taking that and kind of putting it into the mindset that I already had, which is very much like EJ not good enough, and like feeling like I need to, do something better. And just kind of using that as an excuse to basically like facilitate the tape that I already had in my head, whereas I feel like the point of knowing your type is to kind of get out of that, rather than reinforce it. So it's almost like a lot of times Shannon Dave say the type doesn't matter, and that kind of seems true, because if you just use it to replay the tape that's in your head, then it doesn't matter. But if you use it to see the tape in your head, and then you can somehow get out of that and change it, which is another thing on top of the type, right? It's not the type that's like choosing to get outside of your type, then in that case that it can be very useful. So I feel like I've gone through that entire journey of like using it to like be more into, my saviors, and then kind of saying, okay, maybe there is kind of a way out of that, I guess you could say. So yeah.
Yeah, that's some deep stuff there, Julia. That's good. No, it's good. Yeah, it's cool that you can become the pilot of your type. You don't need to, you don't need to be like that type, and then you need to embody that type, kind of like what you're saying with the FE, right? Like, oh, I'm savior FE, I need to be more nice, like, no,
Yeah.
you can choose. So I think that's a good like
Yeah.
observation that you made about the whole personality stuff.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys about something that you guys also have, something that's different. So Julia, you, like a lot of people are type as ESFJ seems to be consume last, but you have consumed activated, like, and your NT is activated. But your worst one is your ST at the end, right? So can you talk about like some of the pros that you've seen having that NT activated, that NT consume, but also some of the cons of having that ST not activated? And then for Maggie, opposite, the pros of having that ST activated and the con of having that NT last, not activated. Let's go with Julia first.
For sure, for sure. This is something that I'm trying to like wrap my head around right now, because it does feel like I can tell I'm for sure demon NT in a lot of ways. Like my brain is not automatically doing the NT, where it's automatically doing the SF. So I am demon NT, but also like the void in my life. If like you look at just my life pile, the void is ST. The void is not NT. And it's hard to like explain exactly how that actually happens in my life, because you think if my brain is avoiding the NT, then like I should have a void of NT, but I just somehow find a way not to make a void of NT in my life, but my life pile has a void of ST, which is like a little bit weird, so it totally depends on how you look at it, but in a way you can definitely say that ST is my worst, like the worst part of like my life, maybe,
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that, I think. And Maggie and I have talked a little bit about like the info energy thing. I do also feel like my consume. So one of the things that I've wondered is I wonder if like having blast and consume kind of makes it easier for me to go back and, because we're going back and forth with people on the information, right? And I kind of feel like we're going back and forth with people about like opinions and things like that. And one of the things I've noticed is I feel like the consume lasts are way more concerned about I don't know if this is the right language, but like other people's opinions of them kind of a little bit. And I feel like with my blast and consume kind of balance, I can sort of work through that maybe like a teensy bit easier than them. I don't know, Maggie, if you still feel like that's true or not, but at least that's been my perception of myself compared to the energy doms, I think.
Yeah. So actually I was thinking about this the other day, and like I do think that's true. So like I would say that like having consume, I'll just jump to the consume last part. The one thing that I was thinking about that I realized that is when I do try to go learn about myself, I do it through others. I'm always like, what's your opinion of me? Because I can't do it myself. I won't learn about myself on my own. I have to go and do it. Like, what's your like, weird TE, what's your opinion of me? Like, what do you think? Oh, if it's true to them, then it must be true about me. So I never end up forming any opinion of on myself for myself. It's always dictated by what other people think of me. So I think that kind of like feeds into like what you were saying, like where we are concerned about what people think of ourselves, because that's the void. I haven't done that work myself to actually like build my own identity myself. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Well, I don't know, because I haven't done the work to build my own identity either. For me, it's not necessarily about building my identity. Because I'm sleep last. So I would guess I would be worse than you at building like my actual true identity, like, in reality, because I'm sleep last. But I feel like I have the ability to, how do I even describe this? Take other people's opinions of me, not necessarily to say who I am, like who I am in reality, because honestly, as sleep last, I'm not even looking at that, which is crazy. But like it's your last animal is like blind to you, like beyond belief, right? So like that's like not even a concern. So it's almost like I'm taking other people's opinions of like who they think I should be and like who I would like aspire to be, and like this person that I can maybe be someday, but for sure not like who I am, because I'm sleep last and like I don't even notice it, So
yeah, maybe I shouldn't have used the term build, because I guess that is more of a sleep thing. But I guess like just actively going and seeking new information about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like when you were
Yeah.
describing like how you were using OP to learn about yourself, it kind of sounded like you're doing that was the consume, because like I
Yeah.
wasn't doing, I was just like, hey, people, where do I fit in? What do they think of me? Like,
Yeah.
why is it we're having these interactions versus those interactions? Like that type of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Maggie's your type is very interesting because you're savior gatherer but consume last, right? So your lead play, you're gathering from people, but you're not gathering yourself. So it's definitely a weird contradiction.
Yeah, like bring, but only for others, never for myself.
Right. And also I think with the NT and ST last for you guys, I think ST last means like your insecurity would come from feeling not competent. I don't know if you struggle with that, Julia. And then for Maggie, it's because it's NT, it's like you feel like, I guess, not super smart because of the lack of NT being in fourth, you know. But it's weird because it's consume, right? So it's not as personal as the sleep. And technically you're supposed to find a solution from something that you've researched. So it's still a little bit different, you know. Like if you were like an ENFJ, then being able to figure something out is going to be the most personal thing. But like with SD sleep, it's like being able to be competent to do what needs to be done is the most important thing, right? So it's kind of like those small different differences. So with Julia, for example, can you talk about the competence thing and how you have the issues with that?
Yeah, for sure. Competence is like a big, I feel like you hit the nail on the head actually there, being, yeah, ST sleep last, which is like insecurity about self, specifically related to competence and like my own decisions about the ST in reality, which honestly is very weird. It's very weird because ST is so non-personal, but sleep is the most personal thing.
Right.
And being an EJ, it's like insecurity about self because of, you know, other people seeing me, but then the insecurity is about something that's super non-personal and ST. So it's very weird. It's like competence about like little like day-to-day decisions in my life of just things that I'm doing on like a daily basis, and just concerned that like I'm not making the right decision about the right thing. Like sensorily in reality about things that no one gives a shit about. That's just like the physical stuff, you know, which is very weird. Like,
Yeah.
why be so weird about ST stuff? But that's just, I actually, I don't know if I can even elaborate on the way you said it, because that's so like exactly nail on the head, exactly what it is.
Is it with ST sleep last? Do you feel like you're helpless, or what is like the feeling there?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know if I would truly say, I would say, yes, I do feel that. But then also once I get outside of my head for like 2 seconds, I realize, okay, that's actually not true at all. And I'm actually way better at doing even like, because ST is like things. So as like a double observer, I'm way better at doing things than the single observers.
Right.
You know? And especially with Blast, I'm way better at like planning shit and like getting things started and actually like moving projects forward compared to the consumers. So it's like, it is a feeling of helplessness. Like I can't get the physical things in reality, and like I'm not going to make the decisions just perfect to like do the things. But then when I get outside of that like mentality for 5 seconds and I compare myself to like a lead consume single observer, I'm like, oh, fuck this, I'm doing fine in life. Like, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, it feels like that, but it's also so crazy that it feels like that because it's not even slightly true in reality at all. So yeah.
Well, it seems like you know what you're doing, so it's kind of like, I wonder if it's just like a perception of incompetence, because like, for example, with Zoom, like you know it better than me, and like the last panel, you're the Zoom coach, right? So it's like, you know, so clearly you know what you're doing, you know. I mean, even if other people steal your stuff,
Yeah.
you know, but so
it's also, yes, that's very true. And it's also, it comes from, I think, the fact that I'm not looking at other people's ST, because
right.
I think like, oh, ST is personal. So like I'm not looking at the SET of other people. I'm not seeing also how like my own decisions about what I'm doing affect other people in their little ST lives. So like there's just such a wide chasm there that I'm just not even seeing it, you know? So I think that's why that happens, because that stuff happens. Like you said, like we're all on Zoom and I'm like the Zoom coach telling people how to do things, but then I'm
Right.
sitting over here being like, I'm helpless. I don't know how to do things. And people are like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. You just told people what to do. So
Exactly. And
yeah.
it's because I don't see that's how that builds, because I'm just not tracking the things that I'm doing or the ST of other people and how that kind of relates to one another, how my ST relates to other people's ST. And then it just creates this clusterfuck in my head where like I have a totally wrong perception of my own capabilities.
I think I get what's happening now. So I had, because I'm also sleep lost like you. So I had this like issue I was thinking about a while back. I was like, why do I keep feeling insecure about myself? Like I feel like everyone's like higher than me. Of course, I'm a D like you guys, like double decider. So not to like the extreme case, but and then like I remember I just laid in bed once and I started remembering all the stuff I've accomplished in my life. I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, like dude, you've done a lot more than most people would have ever done. Like, why are you putting people up on a pedestal that hasn't even done what half what you've done? Like, what is wrong with you? And then I was like, shit, like, so I caught myself, right? And I'm like, well, shit, like, why am I feeling bad? I shouldn't feel bad. I've done all this stuff, it's kind of like with you, like you just didn't think about it, right? You didn't process, you didn't like, you pretty much forgot who you are. You forgot who you are and what you've done, and like, and now you think you're like incompetent or you're helpless or like you're not as like valuable as the other tribe member, when in fact you probably are a lot more valuable than you think. And you're like, who, like, if you only took a second to like think about it, then your perception would have changed about yourself. And I think that's what happened to me. And I feel like I'm talking to you right now because I'm like, there seems to be a disconnect. I'm like, yeah, you're coaching people on Zoom, so clearly the ST stuff. How come you forgot? Like, so it's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that's such like the savior play like tidal wave of like, because I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like with Sleep Last, it's like I'm not motivated to do like my own things. I'm not motivated by my own internal like decider literally to like move me, but
Yeah.
I'm doing a ton of shit and it feels like it's coming from the outside world and like I'm not even noticing and I don't feel responsible for it, but like it's still happening and I'm still doing it. So then you just go through life and you're accumulating all this shit, and then eventually you just realize, oh my god, look at that, I've done like 1,000 times more things than everyone else on the planet, and I didn't even mean to, and I didn't even notice it, and it just happened to me and I wasn't responsible for it, but whoopsies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
like it just happens.
Yeah. And then but it's, and then if you make a conclusion out of that, you're like, wait a minute, I'm not incompetent. Like,
yeah, I'm not incompetent or I'm not invaluable because like look at all the shit that I've done.
Yeah. And you are right though, your sleep is weird because your sleep is technically like an observer thing. It's weird. Yeah, I don't know.
I've had other people of my type tell me they thought that they were single observers because they like have so many problems with the things. They're like, I can't do things. I have thing problems. Obviously, I'm an observer. I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. I have thing problems too, except I'm actually really good at the things, but I still have thing problems. It's just like my brain doesn't like get what's single observing and what's like demon ST sleep,
Right.
But, yeah, other people of my type have thought they were single observers because of that.
I want to bring this to Maggie.
Sorry.
Maggie, no, it's all good. So Maggie, you have it third though. Your sleep is third. So that means you are building your DI. You are reminding yourself of who you are, but it's still a demon. So can you talk about like what's going on in your head when you do take the time to think about that kind of stuff? Because technically it's supposed to be activated, but I want to hear from your own perspective.
I think it takes a while. Like it's not like it's still demon, right? And it does take a while for it to like really set, for me to really process something. But it does like, it is kind of like, because it's ST, it is like weirdly the most objective thing, but at the same, because like we all experience the ST, but it's subjective. It's purely subjective. So it's like trying to process everything that happens in that has happened, and trying to logically understand it, and like, okay, well, so this and then this happened and then this happened. Oh, okay. And I guess maybe where I fail to come in is like, okay, well, to think of like different possibilities of how I could have dealt with something in the past, but it is incredibly personal, so it's weird to share with others, so I don't. And it is like, so having an ST conversation can be kind of weird because I don't want to share it because A, I may not have completely processed it yet, or B, it's just super personal, and like, oh, it feels like it just feels like it's too revealing. They may judge me for it.
Yeah.
Like, I no. So just like, not yet, not yet, not yet.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I like that one. And you know, for me, I have SF sleep, right? So when like I have to talk about SF stuff, like, oh, this is so personal, you know. But then I recently like experimented with it, like at work, because I was like, okay, I think it's just my BS programming that's thinking that way. Because like I went to work and I know there's someone at my work that's like SEFE, and he always sends me like, because I teach a spin cycle. I don't know if you have ever taken a spin class, but like I teach spin, right? So like I'm always organizing because I have SIFI, right? So I'm organizing which is like the song to play in which specific order to make it like sound like the best, so that people in my spin class will be like, yeah, you know, this is great, you know. So this one dude with the SEFE, he's like just throwing to me like different like music, right? He's like, what about this one? What about this music or this music and this music, right? And then I noticed when because my SF is personal, so I go up to him and I'm like, dude, this music sucks for this class. Like he doesn't take it personally. He's like, oh, okay, what about this music? You know? And then I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing with TE, but he's doing it with like SEFE, you know, he's like throwing like different music that can like, you know, pump up people's emotion. And when I make fun of it, it's not personal, you know. But if I go up to someone with SIFI, I call them cringe, they're gonna take it super personal, right? Because like, you know, that's like very un-NF, right? Or SF, sorry. So I thought that was like very interesting. So based on what you said, the other thing I was locking onto that I was kind of curious about you guys is, because your sleep is SITI, there's like the SI component. Is it super slow because it's like, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then so for every little thing that happened, you have to think about it, right? This is with TI, right? So I would say it's even like slower than maybe FI, because for me, it's like, this happened. How do I feel about it? This happened. How do I feel about it? You know. But for me, it's like a little bit quicker because like, yeah, don't like it, you know. It's like, you know. But with TI is like the most deepest, like, in a way, for thought, for logical thinking, because you have to analyze it, right? Like so it's SI, so it's like slow to begin with because it's step by step, and then there's TI, which makes it even slower because you have to analyze it on a deep level. So like, what's going on with you guys with that? Like, I'm just curious.
So Maggie may have a better answer than me, but I feel like I don't know if I can necessarily say whether I don't know if I can necessarily compare my sleep to other people's sleep, but I can compare my ST to other people's ST. And I feel like the TEs, when I see them like doing things, especially like the SETs, and there's like just try this, try this, try this, try this. I'm like, it freaks me out because I'm like, wait, stop, and like basically overthink it, you know, like overthink this very simple thing that we need to do in reality before we do it. And they're like, that's dumb. I'm like, yeah, okay, that is dumb, but like, you know,
Yes,
like I do
lot,
need to do that. So yeah. I can tell that my ST is slower than the SETs, but I'm also ST last. So Maggie, I don't know, Maggie, if you have a better response to that, since my sleep is so blind.
Yeah, no, I think it is exactly that. Because like putting together like a project, like if you have to do some sort of like somewhat easy like home renovation, I feel like ST plays, they could just do it. They just try it. They just like, I'm like, no, I got
like,
yeah. What do you mean? Where are the studs? Do I have the right tools? What do I really want to do? How am I going to functionally use this space moving forward? Like, I need to overthink it. And oh my God, actually, that's probably one of my biggest triggers is when people tell me, oh, you're just overthinking it. You're overcomplicating this. And I'm like, maybe you're not thinking about it enough. It's always like one of my biggest triggers. But Yeah, no, it takes forever for me. And it's just like mentally draining to just try and like think of like to just think through a project or something. Like I'm getting drained just thinking about it now, trying to explain it.
I would wonder, kind of just going off of that question, I would wonder if then that means that our play is faster than your play. You know, if you think like FI sleep is faster than TI sleep, I would wonder that FE play is faster than TE play. Because our play is like, especially NF play is like, let's just bullshit around about bullshit, you know? Like, let's just like resolve emotions for the whole tribe right here, right now. Let's get it out. Let's just chit chat. Let's talk about like emotionally deep things. I would wonder if like, versus like TE, like getting stuff done, you know, I would wonder if like we have like the faster play or something. I don't know. Do you see that at all?
Yeah, I think so. I have NT play, right? So I have to figure it out, and that takes time. It's not like I would think SF play would probably be the fastest because it's just bullshitting, right? Like for fun, you know?
NF is way more bullshit than SSL.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
No.
SF respects the actual facts.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just gonna guess about it and then move the hell on from there.
Well,
No,
like
okay.
SF play is also like, let me is like, you know, Gary V, like, let me like do something that people love. Like it's like you have to kind of figure out what the thing is that people love, whereas NF play is like, let's just talk about the tribe's emotions all day, every day. Like, like let's talk about, you know, all the problems that we have as a society. Yay.
Yeah, not everybody loves that. It's
I
disappointing.
like it. I think it's fun.
I was just thinking about what you guys saying. I'm like, is it really more bullshit than SF? I mean, yeah, I guess in a way it could be, but I think with NF, you have to think about it too because of the N thing. Because like someone will say something to you that's NF, right? You're like, does that make sense? I'm confused now, you know? Like with SF, it's kind of like it makes sense, you know? Like like pie on the face, you know, yay, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you're talking about like a tangible thing. Like it's something like I find like whenever I'm trying to like work through something, some sort of problem, and like I abstractly talk about it with somebody else, they're like, I don't maybe I don't know what you mean. The second I'm like, all right, let's bring in an example, then we get somewhere. Like I can't get like I feel like I have a hard time getting a conversation or getting some solutions from the tribe.
Yeah.
If we bring in an example, like it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, because if we're talking about the speed of the animals, then like for sleep, like NF sleep would also be very hard because like what the hell, like,
Oh.
like with those ESFP individuals, it's like it's especially with the N in the bottom, it's like what the hell's going on with that like NF sleep, right?
Yeah.
It's like at least with NT, you're trying to figure something out,
Yeah.
but with NF, you're like, what?
I feel
So
like NF sleep can be rough. It's like because it's an inner world that's like just really abstract. No one can like bring you out of it. When you're in that inner world, it's very like, and if you have like a dark NF inner world, I mean, it's like it can get real dark real fast, and there's no outside ST reality that's gonna like bring you out of it. Like that's
Yeah, like I don't know how they triangulate that. Like at least like with NF play, like it's extroverted. Like it's like the guesses of like the maybe patterns of what other people value. It has nothing to do with me. So like I can objectively see, oh, people like this, they don't like that. Like, okay, I'm gonna guess that like maybe they like this. And then I can see, oh no, they didn't like that. Okay, and I'll make another guess and I'll make another guess. Like it's very like it's not like trying to do that with myself if it was demon.
I've
don't
watched like the demon NIFI plays like people who have demon NIFI sleep as a demon. I've watched them like try to like go through and resolve like deep dark emotions, and it's so different than the way that I resolve deep dark emotions. Because like if I have emotions that I need to resolve, it's cringy and it's kind of like blow uppy, and maybe people don't like looking at it. Like there are a lot of negatives that I can say about having extroverted feelings, but like I'll get it done and I'll get it done faster than them. And when I'm done with it, I'll be like it's easier for me to go through that darkness and then like get out to a light place because it is extroverted. It's not personal. I can throw it against the wall. I can find 20 people to talk about it with.
Yeah.
I can like share my cringy story all day, every day until I processed it, you know? So like it's cringy, but it's like I'll get it done and it makes it easier to resolve the emotions when they're
And do
external.
you feel better after you share those cringy stories, Julia? Like after it's out, like do you feel like I'm good?
Depends on how I want that person to perceive me. If I really like them, I want them to love me back. Sometimes it's bad about it. So like it depends on the situation.
Yeah, if it creates like another problem, like, okay, I've resolved that emotion, but now they might think I'm a sociopath.
Yeah.
Damn it. Now I got like a whole new other set of emotions I gotta resolve.
That.
Okay.
That.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Just make sure that's why you need to have a variety of people. So when you have the emotional vomit, then you know it's like a little bit of vomit for everyone, not like one person just got showered by it. Yeah.
I've also found that like as I've like gotten more into my FE, I can have like fake conversations in my head and then get it out that way, you know? So it makes it easier when I feel like I can kind of do the play with myself, so I don't have to actually go and like vomit all over my friends.
Yeah.
You know? So that makes it easier too.
I feel like I can't do that. The NE just goes wild with the imagining, and then like I will like veer towards like the worst case scenario because I need to resolve that the worst case scenario is not actually true. So like I can't. I need others. If I'm left to do it on my own, it's not gonna necessarily. It may be okay, but more likely than not, it's not gonna end well.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if that's a consume less thing versus a hobby consume thing.
Possibly. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think so.
Because it does feel like it's an anything where I can turn over information in my head, both the way I feel about information and the way that I think about information.
Mhm.
And then by turning that over, then I can basically kind of like change my own worldview, like in my head, and then kind of resolve things that way. Which does sound like a very play and consume kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can't do that. No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like I can't learn it. Like the second I need, like I can learn new things, but if I need to learn new things about myself, no, I can't do that on my
Right,
own.
learning new things about yourself in your own head. That's what.
Yeah. It's not a good place. Sometimes it's okay, but
Okay.
I need to triangulate off of somebody else. Cause like I'll say something and like I think I said something to my boyfriend like a week or two ago, and he was like, "That's dark." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'll think about that one." So now I'm worried he thinks I'm a sociopath. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I'm just having like an epiphany now of how we like discover our demons and then we like convince ourselves that like that's our like actual type. As you were saying that, I've just been thinking about the way that I've been like processing my own self being able to do that, like discovering that I can learn new information about myself in my own head and then change the way I feel from that. I feel like I'm almost like convincing myself that that's like a superpower of like something that I've like always been able to do, you know, like a superpower of like having FE or something, you know. But I think that's just like discovering my third animal. I'm like, that's my savior now. You know?
Yeah. I feel like my FP sleep is a bit of a superpower, and like I've always felt that way. And then like a few weeks ago, I was like, no, it's literally third. People are way better at it than you. but it feels like
peacocking. Oh, that's so funny.
That's funny. I like that. It's a superpower.
I think when Julia was talking about like doing the emotional vomiting thing, and like she said, oh, so it can be cringy. And then Maggie earlier is like, I can't do what you're doing. I think with the consume, you have that external self-awareness, so you're almost like a ghost. You can see yourself from a third person perspective, and you're like, when you're doing something that's cringy, you're like, yeah, I know this is cringy, guys. I know, I can see it, you know. But for Maggie with the consume analysis, like I don't even see it. I don't know I don't know how I come across, you know.
Yeah,
like
I'll see it in the sleep later. I'll be like, oh, they really didn't react to that well. What did I do? Oh, I guess eventually I'll see the NT later, but like I got to do the sleep processing. Okay, this happened, then this happened. I think that's what this means, but I need to then go see somebody else about it. Otherwise I'll imagine the worst case scenario that they think I'm the worst or whatever it is.
Oh, that's crazy. So you have to see later how they responded to you and then kind of work backwards to kind of understand why they thought that and what you did to make that
Or how I'm coming across in the moment.
thing.
I
Yeah, I
don't
see
see
it on
it
the
in the
front
moment.
end. I'm like, oh, something cringy is going to happen and I have to do it. I'm going to have to manage this on the back end. What am I going to do on the back end to be able to manage this? I have to have a plan for both of those things as like the cringe is happening. Oh, I like to be able to plan it. Well, I'm OI. That's also OI, you know, but then
Yeah,
like
no,
I do something cringy, then I'm like, shit, I'm going to have to backtrack. I'm going to have to manage this on the back end. Like there's a lot that kind of goes into that, to thinking about how is this person going to perceive me?
like I'll see it. I'll be like, if I say this, they might be offended. You should probably not say that. And then I'll say it, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like I'll see it sometimes, and it's just like I'll completely disregard it.
Yeah. If I have the urge to say something offensive, I'm like, oh, I have the urge. That's probably gonna offensive. What's the risk to this relationship? Will I be able to resolve this relationship? Is it worth being able to resolve this relationship?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, what can I do if I say something? Is there any chance that it'll be like a double decider thing, that'll like make them actually like me more? Sometimes that's a possibility. Like going through the options of how this can play out in terms of how they're going to perceive me, and then like making a judgment about whether it's worth doing that. And then if I do say something offensive and I feel like it's, you know, I can't resolve it, like what's the risk to the relationship? Is it like, yeah.
Wow. I don't like I do maybe 10% of that and then spiral.
Whoa, that's crazy.
So Julia, what you're saying sounded super strategic. It's like super NT. Like you figured out like what's gonna happen essentially, you know. All the possibilities with the NE also, right?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like what the so the NIFEs are the INFJ. That archetype is the most like, I see how people are going to react to the things that I say, right? And like understanding like the future implications of like basically the vibes of the tribe, right?
Right.
And I feel like I can kind of fake that with my consume, but I do have to get very much into my consume to be able to kind of like fake that and predict it, because I have to go through all of the options and kind of like NT puzzle through all of the options and then put that back in my blast and say, okay, how, like, what should now the plan be for this? So I feel like, I think that that's kind of what I'm describing is like the fakeness of like I guess say like an ENFJ fake thing that I can kind of like, you know, mishmash together with my consume kind of. Because I feel like the FENIs are doing that like a way easier way than I am.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like yours is more valid in a way because you are gathering a pattern externally. You know, it's not like it's like a pattern that they've organized, but it might not be valid for all the scenarios, but yours is NE, right? So it's more valid than like the NITI figuring things out. So I don't know. Okay. One last thing, guys, before we wrap up this interview. I don't think we actually went to the question portion. So I'm gonna get you guys to ask each other one question that you want to know about your not opposite, but your jumper standard counterparts. Okay. Because even though you guys are super close to each other, there is definitely still a difference, especially when Maggie was talking about the consume last, Julia was talking about like the ST sleep last, you know. So there's like there was still like obvious big difference between you guys. So I know you both have demon consume, but what would you want to gather from your counterpart? I'm gonna go with Julia first because she has consumed third. You know,
Thank you.
just to buy Maggie some time to think of something. Yeah. So go ahead, Julia.
I have a question. How do you feel about being the twin type to Byron Katie, and when are you planning on becoming enlightened?
It's interesting. I think so like I listened to her audiobook. It's the most amount of consume I can do. And I thought it was really interesting. Like she's a really interesting individual. There's a lot that I do relate with her, and like I can see where she's coming from. She's got a lot of really good, just like you know, I like the idea of like loving what is. is like when you get into that demon consumed state, it's just like, okay, you don't need to worry about the worst case scenario and like negate that for your own safety. You can also just look at a different perspective and then see what's actually more probabilistic. In terms of enlightened, I I don't know. I've got no answer for that one.
A bit of a loaded question.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. It's a bit presumptuous to think that I might be enlightened one day. Yeah, no, I think she's really cool. I think like, but it's interesting because I thank God that there's like two of them, so I can also look at Ariana Huffington. And so I can kind of like, I've been like looking at this like between the two of them. The thing with Byron Katie, the part that I have a hard time with is that like a lot of her work or the interviews that I've seen and like listening to her book, I don't really get a sense of who she actually is at the end of the day, because it seems very work and FE. It's very others oriented. So I don't really get a strong sense of who she is and like how, how she would react to something. Because she's kind of got this like script and like, and like, how do you turn it around? And like all of these, like, she has these little sayings that she kind of goes into. So at the moment, I find her hard to relate to, like, not entirely, but with Ariana Huffington, I can totally see her personality. She's very upfront. Like she's not as controlled, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's just like the type of work that they do and the type of interviews that are going to be out there. So yeah, I've just been leveraging two of them to kind of like get a better sense of myself.
Yeah, I think that's cool that you can have two people of the same type, but be super different based on the external factors, like, so. All right, Maggie, what would you like to learn from Julia?
I don't know. Like the problem. I never know what I want. I never know what I want to ask. Never know what I want.
Since I asked you about a type twin, you should ask me about Joe DeSania and or Hillary Clinton.
Oh, you know what? Actually, like I was watching Hillary Clinton, and she's a really fascinating type. I think she was a really interesting person to get to know. Yeah, what are your thoughts on her?
So I've actually kind of tried to go in and study her a little bit. I don't know about you, but I feel like she's hard to get to know because she's so political. Like she's a politician, right? So she's not like going to come out and like talk about, her like real self or whatever. That's kind of the deal with politics. So she's definitely hard for me to get to know. When I watch interviews with her and stuff, I do see my functions. So for those who don't know, who are watching, Hillary Clinton is the exact same type of me except FM. So she's the visual version of me. And I do see my functions. I see her, especially when it's really interesting, actually, when people ask her questions about like, what do you think questions, basically like, hey, you're a politician. What's your opinion on like politics? That's like her job. She will skirt the answer and like double observe, which honestly, which is a little bit cringy because I'm like, shit, you like don't have opinions, you're like politician, that's so weird, but she will, it is right, it is interesting to see what a powerful tool double observing is, because like she gets away with it, and the information that she does have about like the events that have and will happen in politics in order to like get around the question of, hey, what's your opinion, is actually a really powerful tool. So I'm kind of like, okay, like double observing is kind of cool, like she can use that actually really, really well. So that's been something interesting to watch with her. But in general, it's hard. I haven't watched enough of her, but in general, it is hard to like kind of get to know her and see her patterns because she's a politician. So I would love to learn more about her, but
there's a really good, the interview that I thought was really good with her was with Howard Stern.
Yes, I haven't watched all of it. I watched a bit of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would dig into that one. That was good. Like, yeah, there's a lot of parts of her I was like, wow, I can relate to her so much. And like, and then just like listening to her life story, and I'm just like, oh my God, like as an EJ, like that's just like the public humiliation that she went through, like with Bill Clinton and like Monica Lewinsky, like I cannot even imagine going through that. And then like staying in politics. Like, anyways, I don't know. I think she's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it seems like based on what you guys are saying that the DI is still important because you guys were complaining how you don't really get to know her. So I feel like if you want to be like the head of state, people do need to see your DI because like the last 3 presidents have all been ESTPs, right? So yes, they're still doing the FE game, but because their TI also comes out, then you get to know who they are. Then you can, people would lock into voting for one of them over the other.
Like
Very true.
just to like piggyback back off of that, along those same lines, like it is interesting that it feels like DI is such a like a common pattern amongst like leaders and presidents and people who are like, yeah, sure, I'll be at the top, like, the DIs. And then like we almost had the first female president as like a sleep last EJ. Like that's just so interesting. And like sure, like her husband was the former president. So like she's not just like some person who's like, I know, I just want to do it, like, because this is like my GI that I want to do. Like she like literally lived in the White House. She saw her husband like literally go through this. So like she has, let's say permission from the fact that she's already like lived in the White House. But still, it's interesting that almost the first female president was a sleep last EJ.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you were saying like her double like observing is such a strong power, and she did so well with that. But I think at the same time, like it's a really good point that DI I think kind of cost her a lot. That sense of authenticity did not come across, and a lot of people just didn't trust it. Like, it's
People are like, she's untrustworthy.
That's right.
That's like the narrative around her. Yeah.
She has a track record of doing evil things too, so it doesn't help. So
she's not like the effie nicey person. Like people don't see her as like, oh my god, she's a nicey like effie person.
No.
Yeah.
No, she's not. She doesn't have that like caring FE vibe to her. She comes across as like evil, essentially. I don't know any other way to say it.
And like evil.
Yeah. The thing with FE is like there is that like stereotype, the grandmother who will take care of you, wants to know how you're doing, but it's like there is a bit of an optimization function in the background of FE. Like you just want to make the best environment for everyone, even if it like pisses somebody off. I don't care. You can sit down with your emotions over there. This is what's going to be best for everyone, and this is what we're going to do. So like, yeah, I can see that like those two sides of the FE.
Well, she has an evil laugh too, right? Like they interviewed her about the whole Libya thing, and then she said like, we saw they died, and she's like, ha 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 ha, and like, I'm like, oh my god, like if you have an evil laugh, you're not gonna get voted. You can't have an evil laugh, you're.
I feel like, I wonder if that's masculine NE, masculine FE.
Yeah, maybe.
Like the masculine NE. I know a lot of like the lead masculine NEs, like I think Jeff Bezos. There's a couple of Trixie Mattel, who they've typed in the class. Like I've watched her videos like a little bit. She like has a crazy maniacal laugh as well. Yeah. It feels like masculine NE, and I wonder if the masculine FE adds to that as well. Just like this crazy like.
You're a maniac.
Like
that's true. Yeah, that's possible.
No, you're right. Yeah, Jeff Bezos has an evil laugh too. I mean, he looks like Lex Luthor already, right? So it doesn't help.
I know. Yeah. I know.
So yeah.
And also, like, I don't know if you guys have seen like, so Trixie Mattel, she's like the drag queen.
Yeah, I saw that video. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at her when she's like, her man. I mean, his name is Brian. Like when she's not in drag, he looks like Jeff Bezos.
Oh really?
Like, yeah, really? Like this like bald guy with this like roundy face. I'm like, he looks like Jeff Bezos. Yeah. I mean, he's also like just like a bald white guy. So like, okay, maybe like all bald white guys. Like I don't know, but like his face shape just looks like him. That's funny. Yeah. Anyways, that's a tangent.
We channel change.
Sorry, who's over here?
Yeah. Even Julia. I mean, double activate any, I guess. So. All right, cool guys. So thanks for coming out and doing this interview and sharing more about you guys' similarities and difference. And always good to have both of you again and to learn more. I think the more I talk to you guys, the more I learn about you guys and your life, and like especially with Julia's like ST sleep problem, where like she thinks she's incompetent when really she's not. So it's like, huh? It's like now actually, if anything, it's destroying any biases I have in my head, because like a lot of ESFJs do act like they're incompetent. Maybe it's an act, like they act like they are, even though they're not. So it's like it makes you think they are, and it's like, huh? So it's like
It's worrying about it's trying to avoid making the decision. I feel like I'm incompetent, so I'm not going to make the decision, and so I'm going to put the pressure on you, and I'm going to indicate that I feel like I'm not capable enough to make the decision, so you have to do it for me.
yeah, and it's also sleep, so it's personal. So you're not gonna try to bring it out, so it makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Then it's like you get in this rabbit hole, and then like I don't know.
Yeah.
Big-
God, sorry, that just happens so much where I'm like, you have to make the decision for me. And then at the end, it's like, oh my God, I could have done that so much better than you. They're like, yeah, I know. That's why we asked you to do it in the first place. Gotcha.
Yeah, and if you only sleep process and remember that you can do it, you had avoided this to begin with, Yeah. All right, we'll end at that. So,
Anyway,
see you guys.
thanks, Kendrick. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.